The red sun hung low over the alien city as thousands of creatures knelt in the dust. Their purple skin gleamed with sweat, and their forearms were raised high in prayer. They chanted in their strange language, begging their gods for mercy. Above them, a massive temple floated in the air. It was made of shining metal and glowing crystals. The temple was bigger than 10 city blocks and cast a dark shadow over the worshippers below. Strange lights danced around its edges, and soft music came from within. Captain Li Huan watched this scene through the view screen of his ship. He stood on the bridge of the human Dreadnought Eternal Defiance, the most powerful warship in the human fleet. The ship was 3 kilometers long and armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But right now, Huan felt very small. "Sir, are you seeing this?" asked Commander Park Yuna, his second-in-command. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She had served with Huan for 5 years, and he trusted her more than anyone. "I see it," Huan said quietly, "but I don't understand it." Dr. Kim Jisoo stepped forward from her science station. She was younger than the other officers, but she was the smartest person Huan had ever met. "Captain, my sensors are reading impossible energy signatures from that floating structure. The technology is far beyond anything we've seen." On the planet, below, something was happening. The floating temple began to glow brighter. A figure appeared at the bottom of the temple, descending slowly through the air. It was tall and thin, with skin that looked like liquid silver. It had 6 arms and eyes that burned like small stars. When it spoke, its voice echoed across the entire city. "My children," the being said in perfect universal language, "you have pleased me with your devotion. Today, I shall bless you." The creature raised one of its many hands. Suddenly, sick aliens throughout the crowd began to stand up. Their wounds healed instantly. Their broken bones mended. Children who had been blind could suddenly see. The crowd cried out in joy and fell to their knees again. "By the void," whispered engineer Kang Minho from his station. "How are they doing that?" Huan frowned. 3 days ago, they had received a distress signal from the exploration ship Pioneer's Dream. The ship had been studying this system when all contact was lost. Now, Huan knew why. This entire region of space was controlled by beings that seemed to have godlike powers. The silver being spoke again. "But some among you have doubted. Some have questioned my divine will." Its voice became cold and terrible. "This cannot be allowed." Guards appeared around the floating temple. They wore armor made of the same shining metal and carried weapons that hummed with energy. They moved down into the crowd and began pulling out specific aliens. Men, women, even children were dragged from their families. "What are they doing?" Park Yuna asked. "They didn't have to wait long to find out." The silver being raised its hand. Again, and the selected aliens began to scream. Their bodies twisted and changed. Some grew extra limbs. Others became as thin as sticks. A few simply crumbled to dust. The crowd watched in terror, but did not move to help. "Behold the fate of those who doubt," the being announced. "I am Morthak, high deity of this sector. My word is law. My will is absolute." Dr. Kim Ji-soo's hands shook as she worked at her station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive quantum field manipulation. They're using some kind of biological restructuring technology, but the power requirements should be impossible." "They're not gods," Huan said firmly. "No matter how advanced they are, they're not gods." The ceremony below continued for another hour. The aliens called the Veltar demonstrated more of their powers. They made food appear from thin air. They changed the color of the sky. They even made some of the dead aliens come back to life, though they moved like puppets, with no minds of their own. When it was over, the silver being floated back up to his temple. The structure rose higher into the sky and disappeared behind the clouds. The aliens below began to clean up the bodies of those who had been judged. "Sir," said Lieutenant Choi Daeon from the communications station, "I've been monitoring their transmissions. This isn't the only world they control. There are hundreds of systems under Veltar rule." Juan walked to the center of the bridge. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. These were good people, all of them. They had signed up to explore the galaxy and protect humanity. None of them had expected to find something like this. "How many people live in this sector?" he asked. Dr. Kim Jisoo checked her readings. Based on the planetary scans, approximately 40 billion sentient beings across 200 worlds. "All of them slaves," Park Yuna said bitterly. "All of them afraid," Juan corrected. "There's a difference." He thought about the human colony worlds, where children played in clean streets and everyone had enough to eat. He thought about the human fleet, where every officer had chosen to serve. He thought about Earth, where humans debated and argued and sometimes fought, but where no one claimed to be a god. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Kang Minho. Before Juan could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Lieutenant Choi Daeun looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, we're being scanned. Something big is coming our way." On the view screen, space began to twist and bend. A hole opened in reality itself, and through it came a ship unlike anything in human records. It was made of living crystal and metal that seemed to grow and change as they watched. The ship was smaller than the Eternal Defiance, but it radiated power like a star. "This is the divine vessel's sacred truth," came a voice over the communication system. The voice was different from Morthak's, younger and less certain. "Unknown ship, you have entered sacred space without permission. State your purpose, or be destroyed." Juan straightened his uniform. "This is Captain Li Huan of the human starship Eternal Defiance. We received a distress signal from one of our ships. We're here on a rescue mission." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, sounding confused. "Humans, we have no record of your species in our divine archives. What sector do you claim as your domain?" "We don't claim any sector," Juan replied. "We explore freely and trade peacefully with any species that wants to trade with us." Another pause, this one even longer. "Impossible. All species serve the Veltar. All worlds belong to the Divine Empire. You will submit to scanning and judgment." "I don't think so," Juan said calmly. The crystal ship began to glow. Energy weapons powered up along its hull. But Juan had been in battle before. The Eternal Defiance was ready. "Sir, they're charging weapons," reported Park Yuna. "So are we," Juan replied. "But don't fire first. Let's see how divine they really are." The alien ship fired a beam of pure energy at the human Dreadnought. It struck their shields and scattered like water hitting rock. The Eternal Defiance barely shook. "Impossible," came the voice from the alien ship. "Our sacred weapons cannot be stopped by mortal technology." "Your sacred weapons just met human engineering," Juan said. "Now let's talk like civilized beings, or we can continue this conversation with our guns." For the first time in 1,000 years, a Veltar ship retreated from battle. As it disappeared into another tear in space, Juan knew that everything had changed. The gods of this galaxy had just learned that they could bleed. Admiral Dayun Park stood in the war room deep inside Luna Base. Around her, officers moved quickly between computer screens, showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Velthari ships. Green dots showed human vessels. There were a lot more red dots than green ones. "Report," she said to her aide. "Commander So Young Kwan." "Admiral, the Soul Accords have been activated. All civilian ships are moving to safe zones. All military vessels are heading to rally points. We have 43 warships ready for combat." Da-Un looked at the numbers on her screen. 43 human ships against thousands of Velthari vessels. The math was not good, What about the other species? Any of them still fighting? So Young shook her head. No, ma'am. The last holdouts surrendered this morning. The Proxima war clans gave up after seeing what happened to the Corvin. Da-Un had seen those reports too. The Corvin home world was gone. Not destroyed. Gone. The Velthari had used some kind of weapon that made the entire planet stop existing, like it had never been there at all. "Show me the hegemony response," she said. The screen changed to show a message from the hegemony, the biggest alliance of alien species in the galaxy. Their leader, a tall blue being called Counselor Vex, was speaking to the camera. The hegemony surrenders completely to the divine will of the Velthari Empire. We offer our tribute and our service. We beg for mercy. Da-Un turned off the screen. Pathetic. "Admiral," said Captain Jinho Seo from across the room. "Maybe they have the right idea. These Velthari really do seem like gods. Their technology is so far ahead of ours that we might as well be throwing rocks at them." Da-Un walked over to him. Captain Seo was a good officer, but he was scared. She could see it in his eyes. "Captain, do you know what humans used to do when gods demanded sacrifice?" "No, ma'am. We killed the gods." Across the room, Lieutenant Commander Bo-Ram Lee was watching reports from the front lines. She was the captain of humanity's newest ship, the TDNS Indomitable. It was the biggest, most powerful warship humans had ever built. "Admiral," Bo-Ram called out, "we have a problem. The Velthari are moving faster than we expected. They have already taken control of the Centauri system." Da-Un walked over to look at the tactical display. The Velthari were not just conquering systems. They were organizing them, setting up supply lines, building bases. They were not planning a quick war. They were planning to rule forever. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked. "At current speed, 6 days, said Communications Officer Tae-Ho Jang. "Then we do not wait for them to come to us. We go to them." The room became very quiet. Everyone looked at her. "Admiral," said So Young carefully, "we do not have enough ships to attack them directly." "I know, but we are not trying to win. We are trying to teach them something." "What?" "That we are not afraid of them." On the main screen, a new report was coming in. Captain Eugene Choi of the Indomitable was speaking from her bridge. Behind her, the ship's crew was preparing for battle. "Admiral, the Indomitable is ready for combat. All systems are working perfectly. The new weapons are loaded and tested." Da-Un smiled. Captain Choi was young, but she was fearless. "Excellent, Captain. What is the status of your special weapons?" "The Singularity torpedoes are ready, Admiral. 36 planet killers, just like you ordered." Around the room, officers looked nervous. Singularity torpedoes were weapons that created tiny black holes. They were so dangerous that most species had banned them. Humans had never used them before. "Good. You will need them." "Admiral," said another voice. Captain Hyun-Woo Kim appeared on a smaller screen. He had just arrived from his exploration mission. "The Aurora's Edge is not a warship, but we want to help." "Captain Kim, your ship has the best sensors in the fleet. I need you to watch everything and record it all. If we do not survive this, someone needs to tell the story." Hyun-Woo nodded. "Understood, Admiral." Da-Un turned to address the entire room. "Listen carefully. In a few hours, we are going to attack the Velthari fleet at Kepler 442. This is not a normal battle. We are not fighting to win territory or resources. We are fighting to prove something." "What are we proving?" asked Captain Seo. "That gods can bleed." The next few hours were busy. Ships moved into position. Weapons were loaded. Messages were sent to human colonies telling them to hide or run. Everyone knew this might be the last battle humanity ever fought. Bo-Ram stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her crew prepare. They were all volunteers. Everyone knew they were probably going to die, but nobody asked to leave. "Captain," said her weapons officer, Dong Hyun Nam, All weapons are ready. The gravitational lances are charged. The antimatter missiles are loaded. What about the experimental weapons? She asked. Those too. Though I am still not sure what half of them do. Boram smiled. Neither do the scientists who made them. That is what makes them experimental. At her navigation station, Jun Seo Kang was plotting their course to Kepler 442. Captain, the Velthari have one ship in that system. A big one, 3 times the size of us. One ship against our entire fleet? That seems unfair. For us or for them? We will find out. Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Human captains talking to their crews, making sure everyone understood what they were about to do. This was not about winning. This was about showing the galaxy that humans do not kneel. Admiral, said So Young. All ships report ready. Dayun looked at the tactical display one more time. 13 human ships against 1 Velthari Dreadnought. The alien ship was so big it showed up on sensors like a small moon. But it was alone. That is their first mistake, she said. They think 1 ship is enough to deal with us. Maybe it is, said Captain Seo quietly. Maybe. But they are about to learn something about humans. We do not fight fair. The fleet began to move. 13 ships heading toward what everyone knew was probably their death. But as they flew through space toward the enemy, something interesting happened. Messages started coming in from other human ships scattered across the galaxy. This is Captain Min Soo Han of the merchant vessel Good Fortune. We cannot fight, but we want you to know we are proud of you. This is Dr. Eunji Kim from the research station at Alpha Centauri. Give them hell, Admiral! This is the crew of the mining ship Hard Worker. We are with you in spirit. Hundreds of messages from human civilians, people who could not fight but wanted the fleet to know they were not alone. Admiral, said Tae-ho, should I respond to these messages? Yes, tell them we will make them proud. As the fleet approached the jump point to Kepler 442, Daun made one final announcement to all ships. Attention all vessels. We are about to do something that has never been done before. We are going to hurt a god. The aliens think we are primitives. They think we are weak. They think we will surrender like everyone else. She paused, looking around the war room at her officers. They are about to learn why that is a very big mistake. When we get there, hit them with everything we have. Show them that humans do not go quietly into the night. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. 13 ships carrying the hopes and anger of an entire species. They were going to a battle they could not win, against an enemy they could not defeat. But they were going anyway, because that is what humans do. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the Velthari formation. No warnings, no talk, no surrender offers, just immediate, brutal violence. Captain Eugene Choi felt her stomach drop as the Indomitable's artificial gravity struggled with the sudden return to normal space. Around her ship, 12 smaller human vessels spread out in attack formation. Ahead of them was something that made her crew gasp. The Velthari dreadnought called Divine Retribution was enormous. It looked like a crystal cathedral that someone had built in space, 3 kilometers long, covered in glowing spires that bent light around them. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. My God, whispered her navigator, Junseo Kang. How do we fight something like that? The same way humans have always fought bigger enemies, Yu-jin said. We hurt them until they fall down. From her command chair, she could hear Admiral Daun Park's voice coming over the fleet communication channel. All ships, this is Admiral. Park, remember, we are not here to win. We are here to teach these gods that mortals have teeth. Attack! Yu-jin turned to her weapons officer. Mr. Dong-hyun, fire everything we have! The human fleet opened fire at the same time. Gravitational, lances that twisted space itself. Antimatter torpedoes that exploded with the power of small suns. Experimental weapons that even Earth's scientists did not fully understand. The combined firepower would have turned any known ship into dust. The divine retribution absorbed it all. Energy cascaded over crystalline shields like water over glass. The massive ship did not even slow down. "No damage, Captain," reported Dong-hyun. "Their shields are not even flickering." The Velthari response was swift and terrifying. Beams of pure energy that seemed to rewrite reality shot out from the crystal ship. They should have erased the human vessels from existence completely. But human engineers are paranoid people. The Indomitable's armor was not normal metal. It was made of reactive plating that could absorb energy and redirect it. Chief Engineer Hye-jin Song watched impossible readings cascade across her displays as the ship's experimental systems adapted to each attack. "Captain," she called from her station, "the reactive plating is holding. It is actually feeding the absorbed energy into our capacitor banks." "How much energy are we talking about?" Yoo-jin asked. "Enough to power a city for a year. And it is still coming." On the enemy ship, High Commander Velathon stared at his displays in confusion. These primitive vessels should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, they were still firing at him, still attacking despite being completely outmatched. "How are they surviving our divine weapons?" he asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, High Commander. Their technology is crude, but it seems to be adapting somehow." Velathon felt something he had not experienced in 10,000 years. Uncertainty. These creatures were not behaving the way conquered species were supposed to behave. Increase firepower. Destroy them completely. Back on the Indomitable, Yoo-jin was studying the tactical display. The Velthari ship's shields were still at full strength, but something had changed. The alien vessel was firing more weapons now. It was taking the human fleet seriously. "Captain," called out Jun Seo from his station, "their shields are down to 78% and holding. We are barely scratching them, but we are scratching them." Yoo-jin smiled. "Then we get creative. All ships, execute Plan Sigma." Across the human fleet, captains received the order they had all hoped they would never have to use. Plan Sigma was a suicide attack that no one expected to survive. The 12 smaller ships began flying directly at the divine retribution. It looked like a desperate, last-ditch attack by a beaten enemy. The Velthari prepared to swat them down, like insects. But as the ships got closer, they did something unexpected. Instead of ramming the enemy vessel, each ship launched its singularity torpedoes at precise points around the Velthari Dreadnought. Velathon realized the trap too late. "Evasive maneuvers!" he shouted. The torpedoes detonated all at once, creating a web of artificial black holes around the divine retribution. The tiny singularities pulled at local space-time, creating gravitational forces that no shield could stop. For the first time in thousands of years, a Velthari Dreadnought shuddered. Under damage, emergency alarms began wailing through the crystal corridors of the ship. "Impossible!" Velathon stared at his damage reports. "We are divine! We are eternal! These primitives cannot harm us!" His words were cut off as the Indomitable, her hull, glowing white-hot from all the energy she had absorbed, fired her main weapon. The gravitational lance was powered by 13 different reality-warping attacks that the ship had somehow survived and stored. The beam punched through the Velthari shields like they were made of paper. It carved a kilometer-deep hole through the crystalline hull of the divine retribution. On the human ships, crews stared in shock at what they had just accomplished. The impossible had happened. They had hurt a god. "Captain," whispered Dong-hyun. "Did we just—" "Yes," Yoo-jin said quietly. "We made them bleed." The damage to the divine retribution was not fatal, but it was real. Crystalline fluid that served as the ship's equivalent of blood leaked out into space, glowing as it froze. The massive vessel's perfect, unmarked hull now had a terrible wound in its side. Velathon felt pain for the first time in his existence. Not physical pain, but something worse. The pain of being proven wrong. The pain of discovering that he was not as divine as he. "Thought! All weapons, maximum power!" he screamed. "Destroy them all!" The Divine Retribution's response was furious and overwhelming. Reality-warping weapons fired continuously. Space itself began to tear apart around the human fleet. Two of the smaller ships were caught in gravity wells that crushed them instantly. But the damage was done. Across the galaxy, sensors had recorded everything. The news spread faster than light through quantum communication networks. The Velthari could be hurt. The gods bled. On the exploration ship Aurora's Edge, Captain Hyunwoo Kim recorded everything as ordered. His ship was too far away to fight, but close enough to see the impossible happen. "Jin A," he said to his communications officer. "Are you getting all of this?" "Yes, Captain. Everything is being recorded and transmitted back to Earth." "Good. Make sure the data gets to every human ship in the galaxy. They need to see this." As the battle continued, more human ships were destroyed. The destroyer Valor was hit by a reality bomb that turned half its hull into abstract mathematics. The cruiser Defiant was caught in a temporal distortion that aged its crew to death in seconds, but the Indomitable kept fighting. Her experimental armor continued to absorb and redirect energy. Her weapons continued to fire, and most importantly, she continued to exist when she should have been destroyed. "Captain," reported Hyojin from engineering, "we cannot take much more of this. The reactive plating is starting to fail." "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 more minutes." Yujin looked at the tactical display. The Divine Retribution was badly damaged but still fighting. More Velthari ships were coming. The human fleet was almost gone. But they had done what they came to do. They had proved that gods could bleed. "All ships," she said over the communication channel, "begin withdrawal. We have accomplished our mission." "What mission?" asked the captain of the remaining destroyer. "We barely dented them." "We did something more important than damage their ship," Yujin replied. "We damaged their confidence." As the surviving human ships limped away from Kepler 442, emergency channels across, the galaxy crackled with impossible news. Species that had surrendered without a fight suddenly began to whisper to each other. The humans had fought the Velthari and lived. More than that, they had hurt them. On his throne ship at the center of the galaxy, High Archon Zephys felt something he had not experienced in 10,000 years. Doubt, a single communication had reached him from Velathon. 4 words that changed everything. "The primitives made us bleed." For the first time since the Velthari had claimed divinity, Zephys wondered if they might be wrong about something. If these humans could hurt one of his ships, what else might they be able to do? As the battered human fleet returned to Earth, they carried more than just battle damage. They carried proof that the impossible was possible. They carried hope. And across the galaxy, other species began to remember what it felt like to be free. High Archon Zephys had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years without ever leaving his throne ship. He was a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form that towered 15 feet high. His voice could reach across dimensions, and his will had never been questioned. Until now. "Explain to me," he said to the hologram of High Commander Velathon, "how a single species of primitives managed to damage a divine vessel." Velathon's crystal form flickered with shame. The wound on his ship was still visible behind him, a dark scar across the perfect hull of the Divine Retribution. "They used weapons we had not seen before, High Archon. They created artificial gravity wells and somehow stored our own energy to use against us." "And you were defeated by this?" "Not defeated, High Archon, merely surprised." Zephys felt ancient, anger building inside him. In 10 millennia of rule, no species had ever drawn blood from the Velthari. Now these humans had not only hurt one of his ships, they had broadcast the proof to the entire galaxy. "Gather the Celestial Armada," he commanded. "All 200 dreadnoughts. I will deal with these humans personally." High Archon, surely. "Such force is unnecessary. They only have a few dozen ships." Zephys turned his burning gaze on Velathon. They made us bleed, Commander. For that insult, I will not just destroy them. I will erase them so completely that no trace of their existence will remain. No one will remember that they ever dared to defy gods. While Zephys prepared for war, Earth was not sitting quietly. Admiral Daewon Park stood in the expanded war room at Luna Base, watching displays that showed human activity across dozens of star systems. "Report," she said to Captain So-Young Kwan. "Admiral, Operation Deicide is proceeding as planned. We now have 50 warships, including the new Planet Killer-class vessel Defiance. The asteroid belt factories are working non-stop, and we have strike teams positioned throughout Velthari space." Daun studied the tactical displays. Red dots showed Velthari positions. Blue dots showed human forces. But now there were also green dots, other species who were quietly moving ships and resources. "What about our allies?" she asked. "Officially, we have no allies. Everyone is still surrendered to the Velthari. But we are getting reports of unusual activity. Ships moving to positions where they could strike Velthari supply lines. Weapons being manufactured in hidden facilities." Da-Yun smiled. The battle at Kepler 442 had done more than just prove the Velthari could be hurt. It had given other species hope. Across the room, Captain Minho Yu of the battlecruiser Vengeance was studying intelligence reports. "Admiral, we have a problem. Long-range sensors show the Velthari are massing everything they have. 200 dreadnoughts headed straight for Earth." 200? Captain Yoon Jong-lim looked up from her tactical station. "Even with our new weapons, the math does not work. We are outnumbered 4-1 by ships that are each individually superior to ours." Da-eun walked over to the main display showing the approaching Velthari fleet. Each red dot represented a ship capable of destroying planets. Together, they could burn entire solar systems. "You are thinking like we are fighting humans," she said. "But we are not fighting humans. We are fighting gods." "What is the difference?" asked Minho. "Gods have never lost a real fight. They have never adapted to genuine warfare. They fight with overwhelming power and absolute confidence." Da-Yun pointed at the display. "Look at their formation. Perfect, symmetrical, beautiful. They are not expecting a battle. They are expecting a demonstration of divine power." "What do we do?" asked Eun-jong. "We give them a war they are not prepared for." The human plan was not to meet the Velthari fleet in a straight battle. Instead, they would execute Operation Deicide, simultaneous strikes across 17 different star systems. While the main celestial armada came to destroy Earth, human forces would attack everything else the Velthari cared about. Captain Hyun-woo Kim now commanded the stealth destroyer Ghostwalker. His mission was the most dangerous of all, a direct assault on the Velthari capital shipyards. "Jin-ai," he said to his communications officer, who had volunteered to transfer to the combat ship with him. "Are we in position?" "Yes, Captain. The phase generators are working perfectly. We are invisible to their sensors." Hyun-woo looked at the massive Velthari construction complex floating in space ahead of them. Crystalline structures the size of cities, building new ships for the Divine Fleet. If they could destroy this, the Velthari would not be able to replace their losses. "All right, people. We get one chance at this. Dongmin, are the antimatter charges ready?" Weapons Officer Dongmin. Lee nodded. 30 charges, each one capable of destroying a city. They are armed and ready for deployment. Then let us give these gods something to remember us by. The Ghostwalker phased through the Velthari reality shields using technology stolen from captured fighters. The ship moved like a ghost through the construction complex, placing antimatter charges throughout the massive facility. "This is for the Corvin," Hyun-woo whispered, as he activated the detonation sequence. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Velthari shipyards, where divine vessels had been built for millennia, became an expanding cloud of superheated gas and crystal fragments. At the same time, 17 other human strike teams hit Velthari supply depots, temple worlds, and communication relays. The attacks were coordinated perfectly, timed to happen when the Celestial Armada was too far away to respond. When High Archon Zephys received news of the attacks, he felt something gods were not supposed to feel: fear. "Impossible," he said to his tactical officers. "How did they coordinate strikes across so many systems? How did they get past our defenses?" "Unknown, High Archon. Their technology seems to be advancing rapidly. They are using modified versions of our own systems against us." Zephys stared at the damage reports. 17 facilities destroyed or crippled. Thousands of years of construction work ruined in a single day. And at the center of it all, the humans were turning Earth into a fortress. When the Celestial Armada finally arrived at the Sol system, they found not a cowering primitive world, but the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Earth bristled with orbital defense platforms. The moon had been converted into a weapons system covered in gravitational lance batteries. But the real surprise was hiding in Earth's shadow. The TDNS Prometheus, humanity's first stellar engineering vessel, had been secretly modifying the sun itself. Admiral Da-Un Park stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the Velthari fleet deploy. "How many ships?" she asked. 197, Admiral. They lost 3 to our strikes on their supply lines. "Still too many. Captain Ji-Hoon Park," she said to her son, who was commanding the lunar defenses. "Are you ready?" "Luna. Base is ready, Admiral. All weapons charged and aimed." "Prometheus, report." Captain Seo-Jin Kwan's voice came from the stellar engineering ship. "Solar modifications are complete, Admiral. We can destabilize the star's fusion process on your—" "Command!" Dayun looked at the approaching divine fleet. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their power. They expected the humans to surrender when they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. "All ships," she said over the fleet communication channel. "Remember what we are fighting for. Not just Earth, not just humanity, but the right of all species to be free. Today, we teach gods that mortals will not kneel." The Velthari attack began with weapons that rewrote reality itself. Sections of Luna's surface simply stopped existing, turning into abstract mathematical concepts. Orbital platforms were transformed into pure energy. But Earth's defenses had been built by humans who assumed everyone was trying to kill them. Redundant systems, multiple backup plans, weapons hidden inside other weapons. When the Velthari destroyed one defense platform, 3 more emerged from concealment. The battle raged for hours. The human fleet fought a running battle through the asteroid belt, while Earth's fixed defenses hammered the Velthari formation. Ships died on both sides, but the humans kept fighting. Finally, Zephys decided to end it. From his flagship, Eternal Dominion, he began charging the Omega Sanction, a weapon that would not just destroy Earth, but erase it from reality itself. No one would remember the planet had ever existed. Dayun saw the energy readings and knew they had lost. "Prometheus, now!" The stellar engineering ship fired not at the Velthari fleet, but at the sun. Sol hiccuped, its fusion process destabilized by human engineering. The resulting solar flare, focused and channeled by orbital mirrors, washed over the Velthari fleet like the breath of an angry star. For the second time in their history, the gods discovered they could feel pain. The battle for Terra raged for 3 days and 3 nights. The Velthari Celestial Armada hammered Earth's defenses with weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, while humanity responded with increasingly desperate and brilliant tactics. Commander Ji-Hoon Park coordinated the defense from Luna Base as Velthari reality bombs turned parts of the moon's surface into mathematical concepts that hurt to look at. His father had taught him that humans always found a way to keep fighting, even when logic said they should be dead. "Sector 7 is gone," he reported to Admiral Da-Un Park. "Not destroyed, Gone. It does not exist anymore. Hold the line, his mother responded from the Defiance as she led the main fleet in a running battle through the asteroid belt. We do not have to win. We just have to make them bleed enough to remember why gods should fear mortals. But hi. Archon Zephys had reached the end of his patience. From his throne ship Eternal Dominion, he prepared to deploy the Omega Sanction. This was not just a weapon. It was the power to erase things from reality itself. When he was done, Earth would not just be destroyed. It would never have existed at all. Prepare the Omega Sanction, he commanded his bridge crew. I want these humans erased from history itself. His tactical officer, a crystalline being named Theros, hesitated. High Archon, the Omega Sanction has never been used before. The effects could be unpredictable. I do not care. These mortals have insulted our divinity. They must be made to never have existed. As the massive weapon began to charge, its energy readings were detected by every sensor in the solar system. Captain Eugene Choi, commanding the badly damaged, Indomitable, knew what she was seeing. All ships, she broadcast on an open channel. The Velthari are preparing to use their ultimate weapon. We have maybe 5 minutes before Earth is erased from existence. Across the human fleet, captains and crews realized they were about to witness the end of everything they had ever known. But instead of despair, something else happened. Something the Velthari had not expected. Admiral, called Communications Officer Taeho Jang from the Defiance. We are receiving transmission requests from everyone. Every human ship in the galaxy wants to speak to you. Da-Yun accepted the communications. Her screen filled with dozens of smaller windows showing human captains from across known space. Merchant vessels, research ships, colony transports. Everyone was watching the battle. Admiral, said Captain Min-Soo Han of the merchant ship. Good fortune. We cannot fight, but we can do something else. We can make sure our story is told. What do you mean? Da-Yun asked. We are going to transmit everything. Our technology, our weapons designs, our tactical data. Every alien species in the galaxy is going to learn exactly how we hurt the gods. Da-Yun understood immediately. You want to give away our secrets? We want to give away their freedom, said Captain Yoon-ji Kim from a research station. If humanity falls today, we are going to make sure others can continue the fight. Eugene made the call that changed everything. All ships, this is Captain Choi. Initiate Protocol Omega, Authorization Alpha 77 Charlie. Across the human fleet, captains received the most important order in human history. Every ship began transmitting their complete technical specifications on open channels. Weapons designs, tactical manuals, engineering blueprints, everything humanity had learned about fighting gods. What are they doing? Demanded Zephys as his communications officers reported the human transmissions. They are broadcasting their technology to every species in the galaxy, High Archon, replied Theros. Every alien ship is receiving complete instructions on how to build their weapons. Zephys felt something like panic. Stop them! Jam their transmissions! We are trying, High Archon, but they are using our own communication networks against us. The signal is reaching everyone. At that moment, across the galaxy, something unprecedented began to happen. The insectoid Kythera Queen received complete blueprints for human weapons and immediately began manufacturing singularity torpedoes with her quantum computers. The gaseous Nebulon emerged from their stellar forges carrying gravitational lances. Even the surviving pacifist philosophers began retrofitting their temple ships with antimatter warheads. This is Admiral Da-Yun Park to all vessels, all species, all free beings in this galaxy, came the broadcast on every frequency. Humanity is about to fall, but before we do, we leave you this gift, the knowledge that gods bleed and the weapons to make them bleed more. As the Omega Sanction reached full charge, Admiral Park made one final decision. All ships, prepare for Protocol Prometheus. We are going to give the galaxy one last lesson about humans. Admiral, said Captain So Young Kwan, Protocol Prometheus will destroy the entire solar system, including us. I know, but it will also take their main fleet with us, and it will prove to every species watching that mortals can kill gods. The plan was insane, desperate, and perfectly human. Every ship in the fleet would simultaneously overload their power cores and fire everything they had directly into Sol. The star, already destabilized by previous attacks, would go supernova. As Zephys prepared to erase humanity from existence, he found his flanks under attack by 40 different species, all wielding crude copies of human weapons, all broadcasting the same message. The humans taught us that gods can die. Impossible! Zephys screamed as Kythera singularity torpedoes punched through his ship's shields. We are eternal. We are divine. But his words were lost in the chaos as the combined fleets of dozens of species opened fire on the Velthari formation. The weapons were crude copies of human designs, but there were thousands of them. The Omega Sanction fired, its reality-warping energies reaching toward Earth. But Captain Eugene Choi made one final choice. The crippled Indomitable, her hull breached, and most of her crew dead, moved to intercept the weapon. "This is Captain Choi, to all ships," she said calmly, as her ship was consumed by energies that could erase reality itself. "Remember us not for how we died, but for what we taught you to live for." The ship that had first made gods bleed died, protecting the world that had built her. But her sacrifice bought Earth precious seconds, seconds that Admiral Park used to implement the Prometheus Gambit. Every human ship fired simultaneously into Sul. The star, pushed beyond its limits by human engineering, began to collapse. For a brief moment, it became a black hole before exploding outward in a supernova that lit up the entire galaxy. The explosion took the Celestial Armada, the human fleet, and High Archon Zephys himself. As reality burned around them, Zephys's last words echoed across subspace. "What have you done? We were eternal!" Captain Kim, dying in the wreckage of his ship, managed one final transmission. "Nothing is eternal. That's what makes us human." When the light faded, the Sol system was gone. Earth, humanity's birth world, had become an expanding nebula of stellar debris. The human species was extinct. But across the galaxy, something unprecedented was happening. The Kythera swarm was hunting down Velthari supply ships. The Nebulon were destroying Velthari temples. The warrior clans of Proxima had taken up arms again. 6 months later, Fleet Admiral Rathek of the Kythera led the new Galactic Liberation Front as they systematically dismantled 10,000 years of divine rule. Armed with human-designed weapons and human tactical doctrine, the formerly enslaved species hunted down every remaining Velthari installation. The few surviving Velthari, their crystalline forms dimmed and their reality-shaping powers fading, hid in the galaxy's dark corners. No longer gods, they were just another species struggling to survive in a universe that no longer feared them. In the ruins of the Sol system, alien archaeologists discovered human data caches that had been scattered throughout the stellar debris. The messages were simple but powerful. To those who come after, remember that no one has the right to call themselves your master. Fight for your freedom. Fight for your future. And if anyone ever claims to be a god again, show them what mortals can do when they refuse to kneel. The Terran Memorial became a pilgrimage site for free species across the galaxy. Ships would come to the expanding nebula that had once been Earth to remember the species that had died to teach them how to be free. Not because humanity was perfect, not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because when faced with the choice between submission and extinction, they had chosen extinction, and in dying, they had taught the galaxy how to live free. The gods were dead. Mortals had killed them, and in the end, that was the most human thing of all, to die fighting rather than live kneeling, and to make sure that their sacrifice meant something for those who came after. The galaxy would remember the humans not as conquerors or empire builders, but as the species that looked at gods and said no, and meant it enough to die for it. Freedom had a price. Humanity had paid it. And now, forever after, when tyrants rose and claimed divine right, there would always be someone to point to the Terran memorial and say, even gods can bleed.